Good evening, everyone. This is the December 4th meeting of the Revere City Council's Zoning Subcommittee on Billboards. Today we have the committee present to review some of the revisions from our last meeting with the first draft of the ordinance. So today we'll be going over the revisions and getting closer to a final draft.
Frank wasn't at the last meeting. There's only two changes from the last draft that I gave you based on our discussions last week. I just beefed up a definition of what a billboard is in the first section, but the other one that you probably need to discuss more is the second change, which is on the starts on the bottom of page 3. Yeah, you're right there, no?
Yeah.
December 4th, it says December 4th at the top of the page. Okay. So last week there was some discussion back and forth. I know the beautification committee doesn't want to convert any to digital, but I got a sense from the councils that you wanted to be able to do that. So what this language states is that you cannot convert a billboard, a static billboard, to digital billboard, except by special permit in two districts only, the highway business and the TED district. The thinking being that that might give some incentive that we, and I don't know if it was John or Arthur who brought this up, that if there's a company that wants to eliminate a number of static billboards, they might do so if we can exchange one digital for whatever number of static they'd be willing to remove from other parts of the city. That's in there. Of course, the council then has to approve by special permit, which means you can put conditions such as eliminate your static billboard, and we'll let you have a digital, that kind of a thing. I did not put that language in the ordinance because, quite frankly, it wouldn't apply evenly and fairly to billboard companies because I don't know if they own 10 or they own 2. So I can't say, you know, you can have a digital if you get rid of 3 if they only own 2, or you can have a digital if you get rid of 4 they only own 3. It wouldn't apply to them and put them in a sort of a bad spot. So that was really the only change from the prior draft that I put in there. The only thing I would like to do, and I'm jumping ahead, is once we decide we have a final, I'd like to have another set of legal eyes look at it before we go and pass it, because I want to try to anticipate the best that I can any legal challenges by the billboard companies to this language to make sure that it's solid.
So there's no limit to the amount of billboards?
No, they're banned outright. You cannot have a new billboard.
I'm talking about an exchange law.
No, right now we can't, apparently we can't ban the ones that already exist. And there's case law on that, although I didn't look at it very closely. So what this will allow is that we get no more billboards in anywhere. And then if someone wants to make a digital billboard, they can only go on the 10 HB by special permit, in exchange for which we could then make a condition that they eliminate some of their static. Yeah.
My concern, we already have a number of billboards.
Correct.
We already have a number of digital billboards in the city already. We already have 6 that have been approved. Our position has always been that 6 is 6, and that's enough. That's enough for us.
This is something for you guys to decide.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing that out there because I got
right.
the sense that some of the council members still wanted to have the ability because they felt that digital billboards were cleaner. And if it eliminated some of the static that are protected, that would still be a benefit to the city. But that's your call.
Okay, but I think this opens, without knowing, I did speak to Frank, Frank Stringy before the meeting. Without knowing exactly what is going to be affected in the HB and the TED district, I can't reasonably understand why anybody would accept it. I'll give you a perfect example. In the, I think it's the HB district, Frank, is the billboards that Sozio owns down on at Brown Circle. Now, look at the contention that developed around that issue. So that's just one billboard. What are the other billboards that would be affected? Before you even go any further, we should know exactly, is it 10 billboards? Is it 15? How many billboards are located in the TED district?
I started to go through a list. I did it on my own.
I did too.
Of which district
Yep.
they're in. I went by the assessor's records, and I didn't finish it, and it's on my
Right.
desk. Because I myself wanted to know, where are they?
Right.
Where are they principally located? Is it HB?
Right.
Is it TED? Is it somewhere else?
But I think if we know, then then coming back and saying, say, this is what could be affected.
Right, that's the list I was working off of that
Right.
Frank has. It doesn't identify the district. Frank might know it off the top of his head.
Yeah, if you give me a few seconds, I can.
But my sense was
give
is
you a
that
count.
the least intrusive place would be the highway business and the TED, on my
Right.
based on my conversations with Frank, as opposed to North
Right.
Shore Road and Northgate and
Right.
areas like that.
This, I alluded to this earlier. I worked with Council Reardon, this is a few years back, and we pulled out the map, the zoning maps, and went through every single one, all the areas. And going around, looking at each of the billboards, what district they're in, because one of the thoughts were to limit something to the TED district or the HB or one or the other.
I mean,
But-
we do have them in the some in the, occasionally in the RB, some in the, because I
Oh,
remember
yeah,
going through the
absolutely.
list.
Absolutely. But I think a reasonable request before you even take the next step, which is this, would be to know what we're talking about. Where are these located? I believe I know where they're located. And,
Well, if you want to give yourselves the option to do the swap from static to billboard to digital, we have to pick, I assume, some area, one or two districts, that were the most sort of business highway friendly as opposed to residential. And those seem like the two logical districts. But you're right, I didn't finish. I did want to go through myself, just for my own
Yeah.
curiosity, to know
Right.
where they all were.
right. But again, right from the outset, I mean, the beautification committee, I mean, not only the beautification committee, enough people in the city have said enough is enough. We have 6 digital online. Where they're located is quite dramatic for some families and for some people.
Like I say, I'm glad I'm not in the council or the beautification committee. I can just sit back and go, you guys decide what you want to do.
Well, one good thing, we're talking about a good thing. It's a change in the city. It's a direction to really, move us in the future in the city. And that's why we want to make that stand.
And we also, don't forget that last provision, which billboard safety and maintenance standards we put in there. Even though I think it's redundant, but still good to have it reiterated again. I think that if you guys ever see a billboard in any of your districts or in bad
Right.
shape, you can call inspectional services. They can go out now and find the owners.
Right. I thank you for that. That was,
And this is what I want to just ask a question about, because this is something I'm very concerned at, going down North Shore Road, just after Oak
Six
Island.
billboards right on 1A.
No, but Clear Channel right after Oak Island, heading toward the Pines. That billboard is a mess, and it has been for forever. And that's and I see more than that.
Now, if the property that it sits on is in bad shape, we can go down and cite it anyway.
Is there anything going to be in this, or is this something you do somewhere else, that will spell out what the punishments will be?
Yes, it's, if you look at the very last page, it's called Billboard Safety and Maintenance Standards. What I try to do is incorporate the fire code, the state sanitary code, and the state building code, as incorporates the International Property Maintenance Code. And the reason it's a weird thing I didn't even know existed, the International Property Maintenance Code has a standard that says billboards can't be blights on neighborhoods. So that's why I use the word in there to keep them clean, safe, and prevent a blight. And then you go to chapter 1.12 and 1.16 for the penalties that you can then apply to the landowner whose billboard is blighted.
Do you offhand know what the penalties are?
If it's under the 40U, which is what I plan to do, it would be up to $500 per day per violation.
Yeah, that's up to. if
But
they
the
don't
beauty about
provide.
that is if they don't pay it, it goes on their tax bill. As long as I can get under the 40U, which is why I put in the state sanitary code, the state building code, and I had Peter Brown take a look at this, and he felt pretty confident we could do that. So that would at least give us a little more enforcement on these billboards if they start to look crappy.
That's a big concern of mine. That's the only thing that's gonna make the.
That's the standard fines that
That's
is
the
issued
40U
by the
fines we do
inspection-
now by inspection services if you
It
have
starts
a,
low, but it goes up to
it goes up, you can
500.
keep it. And you can't get away without paying it, like what used to happen before when people appealed to Chelsea. It will go on your tax bill automatically. So,
That's the one I worried about.
Yeah, no, we definitely could see it. So, I mean, there's our, when we came here, what we've been working on for several years, that's our point of view, is to limit it, the digital to 6. and,
I actually thought we could eliminate
stop.
them all, but I was
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
I
right.
thought we could say, okay, they're all gone, you gotta
No,
get
you
rid of
can't
them,
do
but I
that.
can't do that, no.
There's no magic here. But I think, as you said earlier, possibly sometime in the first of the year, looking to move ahead with this. Why don't we just stop? And if Frank and I maybe could take a ride around and look at what billboards would be affected in this.
You mean in
What you're
the
talking
provision that
about.
allows the conversion from
Right.
static to
Right.
digital?
And also, too, my concern is, I don't know whether we can or we can't, if you did agree to something like that, put in the language that for every one, two must come down.
No, I didn't want to put that in the ordinance because it may not be possible for every billboard owner to comply with that.
Well, that's my point. I believe I know which billboards we're talking about, with what you're saying.
I think you guys,
And
not
they-
you guys, but I think the council should set as their conditions.
Right.
Look, we'll agree to allow you to have digital, but you're gonna get rid of this number one static, or this number two, or this number three,
Right.
or whatever they'll agree to, whatever you.
Right.
And then you can deny it if you
All of
don't
them
get
have
terms.
two. If more than two or more, if I'm correct in my thoughts. But let's,
It's a
Frank and
very
I can go
specific,
around.
it's a very specific condition.
Yeah.
Which doesn't, I'm not comfortable codifying it as actual law for the city.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe someone might give you some other great deal. They might say, look, I'll pay you $100,000 a year, let me keep the three static. And you want to be able to say, okay, yes, we can do that. If you put that language in, and you're limiting it, there's no other options to do that. If we, Peabody, as you know, is collecting 25,000 or whatever. That's not in their ordinance. That's just the deal they worked out with the billboard companies.
Right.
So I don't want to prevent us to have the flexibility, or the council have the flexibility to do that.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say council were agreeable to allowing the billboard in a particular district, okay, where it is allowed, where it would be allowed.
But right now, they won't be allowed anywhere unless they already exist. We're banning all new billboards, so no new billboards can come in.
No more billboards. No more
No
new
more new
billboards
billboards.
coming in the city.
The existing ones can remain.
Non-conforming.
Yeah, that's what I was told that this committee
Right.
wanted. If I'm wrong about that, let me know.
If we were to allow the conversion.
Conversion by special permit in the districts that we allow.
In the districts where they allow, okay, by special permit by the city council. At that point, could we pick out billboards in other districts we wanted to take down?
If they own them, and if they're the ones that want the digital, and we say, look, you got three over there on the Not Sure Road, we'd like you to get rid of those, and we'll give you the digital over on Route 1, and they go, sure, great, yeah. That would
For
be part
instance,
of
the
the deal.
largest company has 22.
I was just informed that the public can't hear the conversations because the microphones are too low. So, if we could speak louder. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Dad, if you're watching.
So to go back to the point, would it be possible to go, if Frank and I went around and looked at each individual billboard, current billboard in the HB and the TED district, before we go any further with
It's
this?
definitely, certainly possible, absolutely, you guys can do that. If you think that'll help you with further recommendations,
Right,
there's
because
nothing
it'll
that
give us
prevents you
an-
from doing that.
Right, it'll give us an understanding, like you had mentioned. Does everybody, would they qualify if in the future they wanted to take two down? I believe that everyone that in the HB and the TED district does qualify for
No,
something.
but I understand there may be other options we're not considering in terms of exchanges that wouldn't be
Right.
just limited to removing static.
Right.
If we write it that restrictive and it's enforceable, then if the guy has two billboards, then we're stuck with it, that's two static, rather than giving him the option of making one a digital, maybe getting rid of the other static, or exchange for some annual
Right.
fee or a licensing fee or
You know,
something.
I
I
understand.
don't want
that.
to, I don't want to
Yeah.
hamstring us in our
Yeah,
negotiations with any
absolutely.
of these companies.
Absolutely, but I don't think that exists, to be honest.
You may be right, you
Yeah.
may be right, but that's just my legal opinion
Right.
based on what we would put in here. I don't want it to be so tight that the council members
Yeah.
wouldn't have some wiggle room,
Yeah.
so to speak, if a proposal came forward that you could all live with,
Yeah.
that you thought was worth it for the city.
Frank, is it at this present time, are there any billboards that are existing in non-approved areas in this, that we have on this thing?
You mean digital or static?
We have many, right?
Many.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say 90% of them, yeah.
And there's nothing we can do, they have to stay there. Can't get rid of it.
I mean, if they take it down,
Yeah.
if they discontinue the
And they have
use, they
another
will
one,
lose their
yeah.
protected status after a
That's what I
while.
was afraid you'd say.
So there is one company that has 22 billboards, you said. We all know who they are.
I
Yeah.
wonder which one.
And so if they come in for a digital, convert one of their non-conforming, the city council has the ability to, you can make it a percentage or whatever. You probably have to create an internal policy how you want to deal with this when if they do come before the city council.
And it would be very interesting for people like you to have the information of just where they are located, so you can know what you would ask for.
Right.
I would think.
Right. So is it possible to make, to have Frank and I go around and to find out exactly what billboards we're talking about here?
It is, there is.
And create a list, could you create a list so that we all know exactly where these are located?
And to see also if there are any problems with that list. I think it's obvious to me that there are problems. I mean, I know two.
I can validate the list that I have, but according to the list I have, there are roughly a dozen
Yep,
billboards within those two districts.
I agree. But we need to know where they are and who's affected by them. I think that's the important thing.
So not only that, but the opportunity of doing like a ride-around like that would also give you the opportunity to make a list of the ones that are in disrepair, so we can notify inspectional services and kind of do it all in one shot, because there might be, I'm saying maybe 15 or 20 in the city that really need to be maintained, whether it be weeds or grass, or it's falling apart, or it's rusted, or a light's out. So I think that's also a great opportunity to survey the current status of what's going on too.
Paul, in regards to signs that are in disrepair, or say if we go forward with this ordinance and we continue to find a owner of a billboard, is there any law that prohibits us from taking over their land or taking over
Well,
that
if they didn't
sign?
pay, if it goes on their tax bill and they don't pay their tax bill, then yeah, it goes into tax title. I doubt that would happen in this situation, but we could not just take their land, no.
Okay, but if there was
I mean, it
a,
would have to be so egregious or harm to public health or safety, you know, if you can imagine a dilapidated house full of rats, at some point, we do have the authority to go in there and clean it up, board it up, or tear it down if we find it it's unsafe. If the building inspector found that the sign was in such bad shape that it had to be torn down, we would get an order to demolish, and we would go through the state and blah, 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 and we'd put all our paperwork in line so that we would then have the authority to go on there and literally tear it down ourselves, if it was that kind of a thing.
so that's a positive thing, at least we know there's repercussion if they don't pay their fines.
Yeah, there's always been a little bit of a repercussion. My sense is, and I said this at some of the prior meetings, that this just wasn't on inspectional services radar screen. You know, they're dealing with the houses and the buildings and stuff. They're not thinking billboards. Do you want to have schedule another meeting, or were you going to just wait for these guys to report back and then schedule a meeting?
I think they should report back for us.
Okay.
And then, schedule a meeting definitely, even if it's, after, in January.
So maybe we'll look at one of the first couple weeks in January. I know January 1st is the inauguration, and so there's no regular council meeting, there's just the ceremony. So we could do it at one of the next regular council meetings in January, before, maybe around 4:30, 5 o'clock.
That information to us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll wait for an email from you gentlemen about what the status is, and then from that point, we can coordinate with the city clerk to plan a meeting in January.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Jessica.
everyone. This concludes the Billboard Subcommittee meeting. Thank you.